The migration is displayed as a visual graph. So on the left, you have your source. That's where your data comes from. And on the right, the destination, the Drupal entity you are writing to. And in between, you can see these process plugins. Each one has its own node, showing exactly how each field gets transformed along the way. So Drupal Migrate API is powerful, and Migrate Plus makes it even easier to work with migrations. But here's the thing. Keeping your YAML, the files which are used to define migration for execution, in sync with reality takes some effort. So migration doesn't work in isolation. You're collaborating with third-party data providers, vendors, clients, and sometimes all at once. The knowledge about how source data actually looks like lives across spreadsheet, meeting notes, some Slack messages, emails, and maybe something that vaguely somebody remembers from some discussion. You capture what you can. Tables documenting each field, comments about how these values behave, edge cases to watch out for. But when something is missing in your migration, the documentation usually doesn't tell you what's missing. You end up digging through old meeting notes or scheduling yet another discovery to figure it out. So this is where Migrate Plus UIs come in. It visualizes how the migration looks like. Yeah, it's a visual editor for Migrate Plus migration, but more than that, it's a living document that gets executed. Your migration configuration becomes an interactive graph that you can see, trace, and reason about. When something is missing, it's visible. When something is connected wrong, you can spot it out. So let me show you what it looks like in practice. So we start on the migration group listing page. This gives you an overview of all the migration groups. Each group typically represents a related set of migrations, like importing content from an external API. You'll notice each group has a group editor button. Let's click on that. The group editor shows all the individual migrations within a group laid out as a dependency graph. Each node represents a single migration, and edges between them represents the dependency, like which migration needs to run before the other. From here, I can click on any individual migrations to open it in the full graph editor. So this is where Migrate Plus UI really shines. The migration is displayed as a visual graph. So on the left, you have your source. That's where your data comes from. And on the right, the destination, the Drupal entity you are writing to. And in between, you can see these process plugins. Each one has its own node, showing exactly how each field gets transformed along the way. So the edges connecting these nodes represent the data flow. You can trace any source field through its process pipeline all the way to its destination field. No more jumping between YAML keys, trying to figure out like which process steps feeds into which. One thing you might notice is that each field has a data type annotation. The Migrate Plus doesn't natively store data type information for individual fields, so we attach this as a third-party settings on the migration configuration. It helps you understand at a glance like what data is flowing through each connection, and it makes the mapping between source and destination much easier to read about or reason about. Migration don't just define field mappings, they also need to know how to connect to the data source. So in the editor, you can configure the authentication method, the data fetcher, and the data parser for each migration. This determines how your migration authenticates with an external API, how it retrieves the data, and how it passes the response. So that's Migrate Plus UI, a living document for your migration. If you're tired of the gap between how a migration is documented and how it actually works, give it a try. And thanks for watching.